Hello, good afternoon. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Friday 3:30 p.m. live at the Some of Our Favorite Things online crop, and I am trying to find where I'm at, just to make sure that this video is going live where it should. If you're joining us live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. If you're watching later on replay, you can drop a comment so I know you stopped by. I see Deborah's here and Ellie's here. Good afternoon. Just straighten ourselves up here. And today we are going to be doing a little bit of working with some blues. And if you know me, you know that blue is my favorite color. And so there's a new program in place with Stampin Up. I'm a Stampin Up demonstrator. And it's called the Product of the Month. And it started in December. And December's Product of the Month was a paper pack, a 12 by 12 paper pack. And in Canada, that paper pack is available when you spend, when you reach the qualifying amount, which I believe was $100, but I'm not sure. Now my brain is going on the fritz. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. You spend a certain amount and then you can purchase the product of the month for $5. And so I put an order in December and I got the product of the month. Now this product of the month has carried over to January. It is still available. They haven't run out yet. So if you didn't get one, and you like it, you can still get it. There will be a new January product of the month available starting January the 6th. I don't know what it is yet. It's a mystery. But I thought it would be fun because mine just arrived Wednesday. Mine arrived Wednesday. Yeah. And so I thought it would be fun to work with it. And it's all blues. It's called the Rue Blue Florals. And I thought I would combine it with a little bit of a helpful hint for those of you who are looking at the challenge for today, the card challenge, which is challenge number 5. And I thought I would recreate that card using different paper, obviously. So I'm using a standard size card base. So this was 8.5 by 5.5. I've scored it at 4 1/4 along the 8.5 inch side and folded it in half. So we've got this nice standard size piece of paper. And then I'm going to ink the edges on here, and I'm going to use Night of Navy because the two colors that are in the Rue Blue Florals product of the month are Night of Navy and Balmy Blue. So I've got my little finger dauber here, and I'm just going to open it back up. I know I just folded it, but I'm going to open it back up, and I'm going to ink my card base all the way around, just gently, just lightly. Add a little bit of blue all the way around. I like these little finger daubers for edge inking. You can use a blending brush, but that's a different look. So if it's not the look you're going for, you might want to use this. And then another way you can ink the edges is to just take your page and just run it along your ink pad. You can do that too. But I like the softer look that this gives. And it also, I think, adds a little more color than that other method. Now, onto this card base, we have all those lovely pieces. If you've looked at challenge number 5, we have all sorts of lovely pieces of pattern papers that are on there. And so I'm using my Rue Blue Florals. And so I have measurements for you. Now these measurements will be written out and posted when I post my pictures. So don't panic. You'll be able to see them later. I see my mom's joined us, and Barb is here, and Allison, and Robin. Howdy, howdy. Brenda's here. Yay. Oh, Brenda, we missed you. Yes, you weren't on earlier this afternoon for Chat and Craft. Yay, we get to see you tonight. So we have some designer series paper from this Rue Blue Florals, and I have gone ahead and cut all of the pieces and I have all the measurements for you because I figured it out. I did the math. Okay, so here is a smattering of the pattern papers, and also I added in some Balmy Blue cardstock. So our two little corners here, if you want to write them down, are 1 1/4 inch by 1 1/4 inch. Okay, so these two outside corners, 1 1/4 inch square. Okay, then this piece here is the same as these two pieces, but I use 3 different patterns, and these are all 1 1/4 by 2 1/2 inches. So 1 1/4 by 2 1/2, all 3 of those pieces. This piece is the same size as this piece, and it is different from these pieces. So these two pieces are 2 5/8 by 1 1/4. So 2 5/8 by 1 1/4. I'm going to repeat those. You need 2 that are 1 1/4 by 1 1/4, 3 that are 1 1/4 by 2 1/2, and 2 that are 2 5/8 by 1 1/4. Okay? And then we're going to ink the edges. So bear with me while I add a little ink around the edges. Now, when you look at these, you might say, well, there's a couple dark patterns there. Do you really need to ink those edges? And you know what? The inside of the paper is white, so I'm going to ink the edges. And it's just going to be a little more cohesive. And yes, you can see the inking when you do it. So if everything else is inked, you might as well ink those. But what it does is when there's some pale patterns like this one, going against a white card base, and we're not even putting in an extra layer of cardstock there, we're just going to build this right on our card base. That will allow those lighter background pieces to pop. The color the ink on the edge will lift it off of the background. Because if you've got something that's white on white, there's not as much distinction, and this will help to give it that distinction. We're going to even do our cardstock, our little piece of Balmy Blue, all the way around. Hey, Marilyn, you're having a good snowy afternoon. Whew, sounds like a day for crafting or shoveling, but crafting. Crafting comes first, right? You got to wait for the snow to quit. There's no point shoveling while it's still snowing unless you know you're going to get a lot. Then yes, there's a point to shoveling partway through because less in the end. But I say crafting. Crafting first. Hey, Diane. Good afternoon. So we're just inking around the edges of all of our pieces. So for those of you who are just joining, I'm giving you some helpful tips on how to create challenge number 5. The measurements will be posted. If you missed me telling you all of them, I got an itchy hand. Now, for this little piece in the example for the challenge number 5, it has the sentiment on it, and it was a pattern piece with a sentiment. I decided to go with cardstock because I wanted to pull the Balmy Blue color from up there, and I also wanted to make it a little easier to stamp my sentiment because I'm using a smaller font for my sentiment. I'm using the Inspiring Imperfections stamp set, which I believe is actually in the Last Chance right now, and it's reduced. So if you like this one, which coordinates with the Kintsugi collection, it's on sale right now. Gotta love a sale. So I'm using the stamp that says, "You Inspire Me." So I've got it loaded up on my block, and of course I'm going to use some Night of Navy for it because I love me some blues. And I'm going to stamp it kind of in the upper right quadrant of that piece. Okay, now we can get rid of our ink. We're all done with that before we stick our hand in it. And then we can go ahead and add our papers to our card. And I'm going to give this Stampin' Seal a go. We're going to try. And I also like to use my tweezers when I'm adding things to my card. Now, I have an 1/8 of an inch clearance around the outside. And what I would normally do, which I didn't do, is to lay all my pieces on my card. But I have a pretty good idea of where they need to go and how much space I have. But let's go ahead and stick them on there. Like so. I know I did this during the last crop. I gave you some helpful tips on how to create one of the cards, and you guys all thought that was a fine idea. So I thought I would do it again today, because sometimes when you got some of these measurements that are just a little bit, you know, you have to kind of get the right measurement for spacing and blah, 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 then it's nice if somebody tells you what they are, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. We don't all need to reinvent the wheel. We can just find out what they are and use them. Now, of course, you can modify this pattern any which way you want. And I thought this would actually be a nice top fold card too. It would make a nice pattern for a top fold card. So I kind of like doing my corners first on a card that's laid out like this, and then you know how much spacing you have left for interior edges. That one got a little bit stuck down while I was chit-chatting, and actually now that I'm looking at it, I want this pattern to go that direction so that the stems are going the right way. Sometimes you got to look at your patterns before you stick it down. Let's put our stems the right way up. And now I can space it between that top and bottom piece, like that. Then I can space this one horizontally between the other two. Like that. And then this last one can be added. And everything should line up. Lovely. There we go. Now the thing you need to keep in mind, you'll notice that these two sizes were different. And that's because between these three, there are 2 divisions in between. And between these 3, there's 2 divisions in between. From top to bottom, there's 2 divisions here, and 2 divisions here, and 2 divisions here. However, between this one and this one, there's only 1 division. So this one needs to be a little bit wider to make up the space for that gap. So I'm just kind of giving you the theory of how I got there. Same with this one. There's only 1 division, so we need to make up the space that's taken up with this gap in this piece. And so that's why these 2 pieces are 1/8 of an inch bigger in length than these ones. So that's how I got there. So that way, if you decide you want to make a 5x7, you kind of have an idea of how to adjust those measurements, right? If you want to make a different size card. Now, this is how it kind of looks in our example, but we can make it a little bit more than that. And there's a couple of sheets of paper in this collection that have lovely images that I think are just wonderful for fussy cutting. Now, do you have to use them? Nope. You could totally stamp something and die cut out a piece to add some embellishing on your card. You could use cardstock and die cut something. You could stencil something and cut it out. But I see pattern papers and I judge whether they are fussy cuttable or not. And so this one, which has gorgeous florals and foliage on it, and it's tone on tone, it's the Night of Navy on Balmy Blue, and it's all done with little lines. I'll trim it out here and then I'll show you close up. There's no like outline of this flower. It's all just a line drawing to create the shape. Just repeated lines. And I think it looks really pretty. It's kind of a different style. Might not be everybody's style, but I think it looks fun. So let's have a little close-up look. So you see there's no outline. They're basically using the negative space as the outline in between pieces, and it's just sort of softly curved lines creating the petals of this flower. I think it's super cool. So we've cut that out, and then we can even cut out the leaves that were hanging around beside it. And I'm still leaving a halo of the background color. And just working my way around. You pivot your paper. And cut you out some leaves and some flowers. So I've gone ahead and I've cut out a few images from this particular pattern paper. And then I want to combine them with something that's a little bit of a different look. So I went ahead and I fussy cut some other foliage and sort of little berries kind of look from one of the other designs. So let me bring those in to show you. And I have done them already. So I've got, this is the other pattern paper, has images like this on it. And so I've gone ahead and some of these I even cut the inside bits. Do you have to do that? You don't have to do that. That's just me. That's how I roll. And so I've got another little floral there. And this one has little buds, little pods. And we're going to go ahead and embellish our page with this. And we're even going to use a little bit of dimensionals. Now this dimensional pack is just about done. And I'm just snipped my way along the edges here so we can use those. And so we're going to start with our large little leaves. Large cluster of little leaves. And do I need to glue this solidly down? I do not. I'm going to use a little bit of glue on the stem and a little bit of glue here and there. I like the fact that this is going to lift, that it's going to create some dimension on my card. The little edges, see there? If you just glue down on the stem, then all your little leaves and things can kind of have some lift and some movement, and they don't have to be stuck down flat. And then let's bring in our large floral. We're going to add some dimensionals on the back of it. Just a couple little edge pieces here to create some dimension, because everything else has been stuck down flat. And we're just going to add this guy in here like so. And yes, I'm covering up some of my patterns. And yes, I'm covering up some of the dividing lines, but that's okay, because it's a background. Hey, Joanne. Yes, it looks very much like Zendoodle, and I love Zendoodle, Zentangle, all that kind of stuff. And I like doing it, and I like looking at it. So it's not everybody's style. I understand that, but I think it's kind of cool. So if you like a little bit of a doodly look, but you don't want to doodle yourself, that's one way that you can get that look. All right, we're going to add in another little bit of foliage there, and then let's grab these leaves as well. Let's tuck some of them in, and they work over here because they're a little bit smaller. They're not so sticky outy, and we've got a smaller space there. And then we've got these little seed pod type ones that we can tuck in there. And then let's come in with our last floral. And you know what? We might as well pop it up with some dimensionals, because we did with our other little floral. Does it bother me that I'm only adding 2 flowers? It does not, because I've got lots of other things going on. And I think it's going to be just fine. We're just going to tuck that in there, like so. And then we can even bring in some bling. So we're stepping it up even further. And so I'm going to be using the frosted iridescent dots, because there's balmy blue dots in here. So we're keeping with our blue on blue on blue. I'm going to use my take a pick tool for this. And there's big ones and little ones. So let's scoop up a big one, tuck it in there. And then one of these little guys, Stick it there, maybe another little guy. And we're just making a little trio. And then, you know what? Let's add some more. Let's stick this guy up here in amongst the leaves. And then another guy down here, just in this little dark spot. Just fill it in a little bit and add another couple. So we've got 6 on there, which is not an uneven number, but I think it looks pretty cute and adds a little bit of shine because everything on here is pretty matte. And so that adds a little bit of texture, a little bit of shine. They're kind of iridescent-y, so it picks up other colors that might be around it in the space. So you get a little bit of a rosy color in there too as a contrast. But I think that is super cute with that edge inking, making those patterns lift off of the background. We've got nice spacing on there with those measurements to help you out with your card. And of course, some fussy cutting, but of course you can add embellishments of just about anything on there. We've got our sentiment, you inspire me, and then of course some fun little blings. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that card come together, and you've got some tips for creating your own card for challenge number 5. And of course you got to see a little bit of that December product of the month, which is still available when you hit the qualifying order amount to earn the product of the month. And in Canada until April, it's $5. And it was, for December, it was a 12 by 12 paper pack. So we'll see on January the 6th what January's product of the month is. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Happy crafting. And we will be on at 7 o'clock for Chat and Craft. We'll see you then. Toodaloo. Bye.